just the Marines that were the leathernecks at that time. Period. Everybody wore that. I'm not wearing it properly because it's supposed to be real tight, so I can't look down. Then I have linen pants, really nice in the winter time. I do have wool spats that are covering my shoes to keep the stones and stuff out of it. I have a linen vest. The only wool I have on is my regimental coat. And it's a single layer of wool, unlike several layers of wool like it should be. And it is not even a fully functional regimental coat. For instance, my red cuffs that identifies me as artillery are supposed to be functional cuff, not just little accents on it. The functional cuffs should unbutton and go below my fingertips so I have my ready-made mittens when it gets cold. Not the case. All they did is put the red trim on so that identifies me as artillery. This is mid-war uniform. Before the war started, which the Americans had a very small standing army, 3 rows of nice fancy buttons. Now it's 1 row ugly buttons. It had a long flowing tail because it was the Regency time period, and the military dress mimicked civilian dress, but just gussied up for military uniformity. However, we got our wool from England. And who we were at war with? England. Are they going to give us wool for our uniforms? No. So as a result, the tails got shorter until there was no tails. There was actually some regiments out there that looked like Cabbage Patch dolls. They would have different color sleeves, different color panels, and stuff like that because they were just putting coats together to have some sort of uniform. That's how unprepared we were in some areas. Because after the Revolutionary War, they were relying upon militias versus a standing army, which was a problem. That's a whole nother history lesson. I'm wearing a Tombstone Shako. That is the true torture device of this uniform. It's like leaving your head in an oven because it grabs heat, doesn't ventilate, it's held in compression, and all it does is make me look taller. It has no other function in that. And unfortunately, I lose that intimidating impact because all other armies were doing that. So as a result of that, that's just the way the uniform was. And it topped off a little pom-pom on top. I'm wearing 2 belts, one holding my bayonet, one holding my cartridge box that provides the ammunition for the fuel of my musket, and then the tools to fix it when it does break. It does break. Hopefully it won't break for our demonstration today, but it does break. So that's pretty much the uniform. I am going to fire for you today actually a British weapon, a British Brown Bess, which the British used for over 120 some years. And why would American have a British Brown Bess in their hand? Well, who won the Rev War?
We did.
We did. You think we're going to let them take them all their muskets home? No.
Nope.
We're going to hang on to them, and we're going to put them into use. We also traded with England after the Revolutionary War, and we bought some of them. So you could find these in the hands of the Army at that time. Infantry, you never know what you'd have in infantry. Artillery, because artillery is only supporting the infantry or defending the artillery piece. They're not in a line attacking like the infantry would be, and they were generally issued the Springfield 1795s. What's the difference between the British Brown Bess and the Springfield? For the most part, a little bit of design, but the biggest difference is the caliber of the musket. The British Brown Bess, is a 75 caliber smoothbore musket, whereas the American Springfield was a 69 caliber smoothbore musket. The advantage of this, whatever I found on the battlefield, I could just throw it down the barrel and I could fire it. So that was the advantage. The American weapon could not do that because it could not fire the British musket balls and cartridges because they would be too big for that barrel. Because this is firing, even though this is a 75 caliber, it'll be firing a 70 to 72 caliber musket ball, depending on who actually molded the balls at that time for the ammunition. Sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller. You never know. But the This has a number of advantages over the rifle barrel in the time period. First, it is always about money. Always about money. 4 of these to 1 rifle barrel. Where does the cost come from? Well, you need that extra metal, which was precious at that time, to be able to cut in the lands and grooves, the rifling. You need an extra reinforcement in the breech of the weapon, because the gas pressure in a rifle is going to be so much greater than this musket, smoothbore musket. So that at a cost and weight, this is 10.8, a rifle would have been about 12. Depending on the rifle, some even more, because they used a long barrel to get really long ranges. All depends on what they were using. So this has some advantage. The other advantage this has, gunpowder at the time period was extremely dirty. If you notice, that flash pan. Now what am I going to do with that? Get darken up my box. It was extremely dirty, and so a rifle barrel could fire at most 15 rounds before you had to clean it. Today, where the moisture is high, if you notice, should have been powder. Today, with the moisture, that turns into a tar. So the rifle barrel would actually fire less. This can fire around 60 rounds before you have to say, time out, I got to clean it, which you don't really get to do in the middle of battle. So this is a better battlefield weapon. Battles are taking place for the most part in the 100-yard range. And so this is important because this can be loaded in 15 seconds, whereas the rifle barrel takes over a minute. Most of us can cover quite a bit of distance in a minute. Even the slowest of us can cover a lot of distance in a minute. So rate of fire becomes very important. So 15 seconds versus over a minute. I'll explain however the minute comes from when I go to load this weapon and fire it for you. So that is a huge advantage that it has. What does it lose? It loses accuracy. It's that rifling that gives it long-range accuracy. It spins that musket ball. That spinning action is what keeps it on path for a greater distance. This is like throwing a knuckleball in baseball. It does not spin. It goes straight for a while. Then it starts to slow down. Air resistance, gravity goes all over. Great for baseball, bad for musket accuracy. So there is some problems with accuracy. You know, it is fairly accurate out to about 100 yards. It's deadly beyond that, but after 100 yards, you have no idea where the musket ball is going to be. How does it work? It is called a flintlock. It has a rock, a piece of flint that is harder than steel, that when it flies forward and hits the prison, hopefully it will shave off enough metal to create a shower of sparks that hopefully falls inside the flash pan. Hopefully you get a big enough flash in the pan to send a flame through the touch hole, and hopefully the gun goes off. You're laughing at me, ma'am. Why are you laughing at me?
A lot of hopes.
A lot of hope. You are exactly right. You are exactly. Where's the hope come from? It's an exterior firing mechanism. It does not like bad weather. It does not like rain, snow, the sweat off my brow. I can turn my gunpowder to mud. All it needs is a little bit. It does not like the wind. Wind can blow away my spark. Wind can blow away my flash. Wind can blow away the gunpowder before I even trap it in the flash pan. A lot can go wrong with that. Flint is harder than steel, but more fragile. It can hit the frisson and completely shatter. It has to stay sharp, because if it gets dull, then it won't shave off the metal. Ever hear the term "don't get caught napping"? Yes, you were sleeping at a job working. Sure. Oh, yeah. I come from a union family, so I can't say anything bad about that. Or my father would be a little upset. Napping is the term that is used to shapen and sharpen flint. So in the midst of battle, if my flint gets dull or chips that it doesn't work, I have to take out a metal tool and I have to nap it. Musket balls are flying at me while I'm napping. You don't want to get caught napping. It is a gun term that finds its way into current usage. How about don't go off half-cocked? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, okay. Too many people saying yes to that. This weapon is currently at half-cocked. I will be loading gunpowder and musket ball down the barrel. if the gun goes off at half cock, bad things happen to my hand. So again, another gun term that now found its way from the gun to common usage. So why did they use this if they're going to have accuracy problems? They're going to have malfunctions and stuff like that. Well, they had other things, but this is the best they had. Keep in mind the weapon before this was called a matchlock. Imagine, if you will, instead of flint, I have a burning cord here. Then I have to keep burning while I'm loading gunpowder. Okay, you get this. You get the idea. Okay, so this was the best they had, but they were smart back then. They knew how to take advantage, limit the failures of this, or the limitations of this. They adjusted to those limitations, and how did they do that? They fired in groups, so that hopefully one of that group would hit what they're aiming at. And that group could be a group of 3, a group of 300, or 3,000. All depends what the battlefield allows. What I'm going to demonstrate for you now is how they would load it in a large group. In other words, shoulder to shoulder, lined up shoulder to shoulder, a line less than an arm's length away. So they had to learn to act as one, because I don't know about you, swinging this 5-foot thing around, I don't want to be poked in the head or in the ribs with a loaded musket. So they learned how to act as one, both loading and firing. And it goes like this. They'd be told to prime and load, taking a partial step back, dropping the weapon to the waist, making sure that the muzzle is safe, open and expose the flash pan, at the same time reaching back into their cartridge box and getting out the speed loader of the 18th century. Tube of paper. There's my speed loader. I push it down because I'm going to open this with my mouth. I really don't want to get gunpowder in my mouth. Made with sulfur, yuck. Charcoal, not so bad. They actually cleaned their teeth with charcoal in that time period. Today, you pay a premium for toothpaste infused with charcoal. The worst is saltpeter. Saltpeter could either be mined or manufactured. And since the mines were on the other side of the ocean, a lot of times in the United States, they manufactured it. And the way they manufactured it, you take animal poop, mix it in some sawdust. You know what the secret ingredient is? Human urine. Take those 3 ingredients, mix them up, put in a warm spot for 30 days, process out the salt, saltpeter, potassium nitrate. So who likes animal poop in their mouth? Yeah. Okay. Smart group. Who knows what color gunpowder is?
Black.
Black. Right, exactly right. This is hard to know and load at night. You have to put the right amount of gunpowder in the flash pan, or you won't get a big enough flash in a pan. You put too much, you won't be able to trap it in there, and you have the wrong angle on the frizzen and won't get the spark. Now, once that's done, we all step forward at the same time. A lot of times there's drum beats telling us that, or commands doing that. Americans grounded their weapons. They step forward of their left foot, pour the remainder of the gunpowder down the barrel, and then the tube of paper follows it. The tube of paper does 2 things for me. 1, it helps me load it quickly. Number 2, the musket ball is round in a smooth barrel, smaller than the barrel. If I was firing off the wall or out of a building, the musket ball can roll out. I look pretty foolish aiming at the enemy, all of a sudden out comes my musket ball. So this piece of paper, when it is packed down with the rammer, it traps that musket ball, it wraps around that musket ball, traps it in the breech. And you notice I just threw my rammer down. The rifle barrel, this is where the time takes place. I actually have to hammer that patchet ball all the way down to the breech. That takes time. I just have to remember now to take out my rammer, because if I leave it in there, more than likely I'll just fall in the middle of the battlefield and I lose my ability to reload. The weapon now pops up, and the commander can look down the line and say, okay, everybody's ready. The commands are going to be make ready, aim, I'll pause a second if you want to cover your ears, and then fire. I'll be aiming a little bit over the chimney there if you're looking for photographs. You notice the Americans are damn Americans are straight to the point. The British, they were polite people. They said present. They presented their weapons and delivered a present of musket balls. So they're told to make ready. The weapon comes out in front, goes from half cock to full cock. Aim! Fire!
So cool.
You like that? Good, thank you. You made my day.
That wasn't the echo. That was
You
the
notice the smoke?
ignition of the first one. It has to
One
shoot over and ignite
soldier
the other one.
with half the gunpowder. Imagine, if you will, several hundred soldiers firing that every 15 seconds, what the battlefield looks like. Now you get an appreciation why I have these bright colors on. Why I have silly white pants on, a blue coat on with red trim and gold lacing. And why I have a tall shako with a pom-pom on top. Why I have silly 2 white belts. Not saying X marks the spot, but it helps identify me. Friendly fire is a major problem with this smoky gunpowder. This bright clothing, the British in red, the Americans in a blue, French generally in a white theme. The purpose was to identify who's who. The enemy's 100 yards away. They can miss. Your friends are a short distance away. And also keep in mind there's a commander at the high ground someplace. Directing cannon fire. I don't know about you. I don't like those 12-pound balls coming my way. So this is the part of the purpose of this is to identify who's who. Yes, to look cool, but also to identify who's who. Now the battle would rage on, not too long. The one side would start to soften up, lose their discipline, and as soon as the commander saw that, he had the soldiers go to the bayonet. I changed my musket into a lance that I could get a soldier on horseback, deal with another soldier with a sword or some other weapon. It is an off-socket socket bayonet that allows me to load and fire the weapon with it on. We also use on the floor for safety. It is triangular in shape for strength, but also to maximize the wound it would cause. A triangular shaped wound was hard to repair in that time period. Purposely dull to make the wound even more jagged. Some soldiers notched their bayonets to make the wound even more jagged. You notice my bayonet doesn't look clean. It's okay, I'm going to war. A dirty bayonet going to war is okay. Because if the stab doesn't get you, the impending infection will take care of the rest. And the way they start, they first start advancing at you slow. What do you think they start coming at you slow? Well, what would you do if 100 soldiers are advancing at you? Probably go the other way. Smart choice.
Run away.
Again, don't forget, you've been softened up. The discipline on your side has already wavered. So running is an option. And guess what? We let you go. The rules of engagement at that time, you run, you won the battlefield. That was what was important, winning the battlefield. We let you go. You stay past charge. There is no quarter given. No surrender after that. You suffer the bayonet. You pay a price for holding your ground. If you're unconvinced about this weapon, that does not need reloading, has no problem with weather, has no problem day or night, let me tell you a story that actually happened here. December 19th, 1813, in retaliation to what the Americans did on that side of the river, the British snuck across the river to the south of us. The British soldier was not allowed to load their weapons. Some commanders actually made their soldiers take the flints out of their muskets. They advanced on this fort, came in through the postern gate, around the south redoubt, over the east wall, and in 30 minutes, yes, in 30 minutes, captured this fort with death. Of the 65 deaths that occurred in the initial assault, almost all of them was with this. It took the British 19 days to take it from the French, but only 30 minutes to take it from the Americans with this.
Wow.
I don't know if you're wondering how that happened, because they knew the British were coming. Well, Captain Leonard had been drilling his soldiers, all hours of the night, waking them up, having them go to quarters. Well, that night, he decided to go to the south. And when the cat's away, the mice turn to rats. They slept through the whole night. That's why they got captured. This fort got captured in 30 minutes. Captain Leonard returned that following morning, found a different flag flying and different guards at posts. He got captured. Never to return back to America after he was taken to Canada as a prisoner. Because he knew what was going to happen if he came back. Which he should have happened, but that's what actually happened at this fort. Question?
Why did they continue to use that for 120 years if it wasn't?
Well, the British used this for 121 years. Keep in mind, they started mass producing these in the early 1700s, and they continued into the 1800s because some of the techniques didn't come up. Not only they had some, like for instance, the flintlock was invented back in the 1500s. Production capability wasn't there yet. When the production capabilities, that's why they took place. And then innovations, like the next innovation is basically this. Take this mechanism off and you put in basically a cap. Where you have a little nipple here, you put a cap on it, like the cap guns, and that would send the flame in through. So you wouldn't have problems spark, you wouldn't have problems with weather and stuff like that. Basically what you see in the Civil War muskets. They call them muskets, but the Civil War, for the most part, at least the Union side, they were rifles. They had the rifling. The mini ball that they had at that time, the back of the mini ball was hollow. And so when the gas pressure hit the back of it, expanded it, and now gave it, allowed it to bite into the rifling and spin. But they were low, since the mini ball was so much smaller than the barrel, they were able to load it as fast as a musket. And so it was the best of both worlds at that time. And that's one of the reasons why the Civil War was so deadly. They were using these early the 18th century tactics in the early 19th century, but had weaponry that could really reach out and touch someone. Questions?
How many bullets did you carry?
Depends on the army. Me, I have a box for 28. If I was a French Marine, I would have a belly box for 9. If I was a Prussian soldier, I would have a box of 60, so I walked like this. Every army was a little bit different and stuff like that, so as far as that goes. And some of the mount was dictated by not only the uniform, but the type of battle tactics, like the French Marines at that time. They were hit and go, hit and go. So they weren't staying for engagements. They were doing that, so they just need a few rounds to get cause some damage and get the heck out of there. When they were on land, on the ocean, on the waterway, they were different. But that's one of the reasons why they just had whereas some of the other ones had bigger belts, pouches, because they were engaged in longer battles. And when they fought on the frontier behind trees and stuff like that, often carried more ammunition because they weren't standing in linear formation. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Would the Springfield ammo fit in that one?
Oh, yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. It would not. It'd be less accurate because it really rattled down the barrel, but I still can send a musket ball down range and cause damage. This would not fit into Springfield.
Correct.
Can you give us an idea of accuracy, like that little HUD over there? It's got a little blue.
If I really want to hit something, I'm looking at that cannon.
What's that?
I'm looking at that cannon. It's deadly beyond out to the leg.
You just can't hit it.
Effective range means you hit what you're aiming at.
Right. So effective range is about that cannon or something.
Thereabouts, yes. It starts getting falling apart quickly. They say 100 yards, but what I've seen, you think it starts falling apart before 75.
Yeah.
And you're talking about taking your time.
Yeah.
This in the battle, you're loading and firing every 15 seconds. You're relying upon that wall lead to be effective.
Yeah.
That's where the term getting the
Like
light out.
when you aim, did you have to elevate a little bit even at that? Like you're gonna hit,
Have you fired a 12 gauge shotgun?
Yeah.
It's just like firing a 12 gauge
Okay.
shotgun. Although it doesn't have the rifled round in it. So as a result of this, you might have to provide some elevation. For the most part, they're aiming right here.
Yeah.
So if you hit them in the groin, that's just as good.
No, it wasn't loaded.
Yeah.
It just had paper.
Ugly stuff. And keep in mind, you're talking about an ounce of lead.